Hi, welcome everyone to the Mud Core Dev Call, where we're talking about updates to the Mud protocol and framework, our roadmap, our breaking changes, all sorts of other updates, as well as some other community updates in general about our core devs and communities uh, contributors rather. Sorry about that. We also just want to announce that we are hiring. So we are currently looking for a senior infrastructure, senior Solidity, and senior TypeScript engineer. The job descriptions aren't up quite yet, but you can look forward to seeing them on our website and on Discord later today. So we'll ping everyone an announcement a little later for that. But yeah, feel free to reach out to your network and let them know that we're hiring. And we also want to congratulate a new contributor that has joined our ranks. We have John Grant. He made a contribution this month, very helpful. And also just a big congratulations and thanks to everyone else, all of our other contributors, core devs, everyone who helps keep Mud going. Yeah, and with that being said, I'll pass it over to Alvarius and he can get us started with the Mud update.
Amazing. Thank you very much. All right. Welcome, everybody, from my side as well. Since the last call 4 weeks ago, a lot of things have happened. And so let's not waste any more time and let's just get into it. So we'll split the updates into two sections. The first section is on-chain, which means just all the contracts. And then the second section is going to be off-chain, meaning the client indexes and everything else is just not on-chain. On the contract side, the main objective is still the contract audit, so getting all the contracts ready for an audit. And the changes we're doing here roughly fall into the two categories of gas optimizations and general protocol changes, which means cleaning things up or adding remaining features that we still want to add before the contract audit. On the gas optimization side, I won't go into too much details on the actual gas optimizations that we've done. But here's some numbers just to give you an idea of like the significance of the optimizations. And the most important thing is here the relative improvement. So you shouldn't care too much about the actual numbers because those are very dependent on the like a lot of factors in the real world use case. But you can see the relative improvements from before to after, ranging from about 5% to almost 50% in some cases. So a lot of gas improvements and a bunch more coming until the contract audit. Then on the protocol side, here are a couple of things that have changed since the last update a couple of weeks ago. So first of all, when registering a new table, previously we were registering the schema and the metadata separately. You can see that here on the left side, the stuff that's red, that's how we used to do it. Now we combined that to one function register table so that in one atomic transaction, you can register a new table with a new schema and also the key names and the field names, what we previously called metadata. And this change makes it much easier for indexes to create new tables when a new table is registered on chain dynamically. Because previously we had to basically search in multiple transactions to get all the necessary information to create that new table in the indexer. Then secondly, we aligned some of the interfaces between world and store. You can see that here on the top right. We previously, the world methods took namespace and name as two separate parameters, and we changed that to only take one parameter, that's the resource selector, which is the same as the store methods. Here in the example, you see set record, which takes now the resource selector for a table, and previously there was namespace and name as two separate arguments. Both of them are included in the resource selector though. And now, and then the third change is all of those store methods to set data and also to read data now require the value schema to be passed in to the method. The reason for that is, on the one hand, there were some circular dependencies where we wanted to write to tables that were not initialized yet, like the schema table when you set up the contract initially, which caused some complexities that we wanted to remove. So those circular dependencies are now gone, and also as a positive side effect, this also saves some gas. One great thing here is that none of these changes are like impact you as a consumer of Mud if you're using the autogen libraries, because all of this is abstracted in the autogen table libraries, so you don't have to worry about these lower level changes. And then there are some upcoming changes as well to the protocol, which are not merged yet, but are going to be merged in the next couple of days or weeks. The first one is the contribution by our newest contributor, John Grant, who implemented support for transferring ownership of namespaces to other owners. And this PR is basically ready, so we're going to merge it very soon. Then there's one major change coming, which is changing the event that was so previously we had a store set field as one of the store events, and we're going to change the approach here and going to replace this event with store splice record, which is going to make it like add support to some of the store methods like push to fields. So it's going to make it cheaper to modify dynamic length fields in a record, and also it's going to add support for a schema-less indexer. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. We're probably going to talk about this more in a future core dev call once this is ready and once some of the improvements this causes, like the schema-less indexer, are ready as well. And then the third thing that is in progress currently is the account delegation via call from, which is going to support account delegation, meaning accounts can set like permissions for other accounts to call methods in their name, similar to approve and transfer from in ERC20. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail here. If you're curious about more details on this one, I would recommend heading over to GitHub to this issue that you see here, proposal account delegation via call from. It's an ongoing discussion right now, so you can influence the way we're going to implement this by participating in the discussion if you're curious. That's all on the contract side. Now let's have a look at the client side, what happened there. So on the read side, so meaning reading the state from the contracts, we have our automatic indexer that's now ready to be used. You can head over to mud.dev/indexer for documentation on how to set that up locally or on a server, and also on how to use it. And we currently recommend that you would host this yourself for any app you publish, because there's still breaking changes between MUD versions at the moment, because we don't have a stable release yet. And so to ensure that your indexer is always running on the same version as your app, we recommend that you host the indexer yourself for now. Again, you can find instructions for how to do this at mud.dev/indexer. And then the templates are all up to date, updated to the new sync stack. Meaning, if you create a new template right now with pnpm create mud, then that's going to use all the new v2 code and none of the outdated v1 code anymore. And on the sync stack side as well, we have storage adapters for RECS and SQLite ready, so you can use that as a storage backend basically. For RECS, we have already we already had previously query support. For SQLite, we're going to add some better support for querying and reactive queries in the future. And then we have one more storage adapter that's currently in progress. That is the storage adapter for Postgres, which is supposed to make indexes that run on a server more production ready than SQLite. And then on the write side, so interacting with the contracts, sending transactions to the contracts from the client, we have upgraded all of our contract libraries to VM, and we have also added to this, like we have added a wrapper basically to VM. It still keeps all the same interfaces and types as the native, or like the plain vanilla VM contract, but we added nonce management and also useful stuff like automatic retries in case the transaction times out. And for this, I would like to quickly invite Frolic to the stage, who can do a quick demo on the new contract libraries.
Hello. I have a little bonus at the end of the demo too. Let's see. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yep.
Yeah, we see it.
Great. So in a MUD template, a fresh project, in this case, I'm using our example project, which has a bit more features and buttons you can click and test. But in a example MUD project, if you're using vanilla VM right now, VM includes this helper library method get contract and an ABI into, as well as your various VMs, and it will create or strongly typed object similar to how ethers used to work. So like world contract write dot should show me all of the different methods that are available on the world. And this is including increment, which is we have in our example projects. So I can call this, and actually these buttons here are already wired up to this. However, VM doesn't do any of its own nonce handling for a very naive version of that. So basically, when you kick off a transaction, it will ask the chain what is the current transaction for generating that nonce, and then it sends that with a transaction. So you can only really do one transaction at a time, and any more than that, queuing up any more than that will often fail because become out of order. So if I hit span increment a couple of times, you'll see pretty quickly this is deployed to our testnet. I'm not sure why it's not airing right now, but just a second. Be having a hard getting data from maybe the X or something. Sorry, this was working just a second ago.
Classic demo gods.
Yeah, for some reason this is totally stalled. Yeah. Let me see about I wonder if we should come back to this. And just try to deploy real quick and see if that helps at all. I'm pointing to the old one, so I'm not sure if there's any trouble there. Yeah, I think the testnet might be having a hard time. Might have to skip the live test. But anyway, I can show you some of the code. So essentially, instead of this contract call, you can use your contract from our let's see, from our common package, which has a bunch of utilities. So exact same interface as VM's get contract, except this has built into it not handling, which means I can spam. Sorry, let me. I can spam this button, this increment button, over and over and over, and it will handle nonce increment them. And it will also, as sort of a side effect, keep them in sync between browser tabs and windows. If you have multiple windows open, they will all be aware of each other's nonces and make sure that they're incrementing properly. So greatly reduces any nonce errors that you might encounter when you're like performing lots of action quickly. The other benefit issues is that our create contract method here includes an on-write callback method that you can basically pipe into an observable stream, and you can hand off to it's not shown here, but you can hand that off to our developer tools. So when I have the developer tools open and I hit the increment button, before I'm even doing any sort of gas estimation or anything, the developer tools are now aware of the transactions that I'm kicking off, and the developer tools will kind of keep a running tab of all of the transactions, where their progress is as far as gas estimation, if it fails gas estimation, and if not, when it lands in the pool, and then ultimately when it can transaction or reverts, and you'll see that status update here if the testnet was doing what we expect. Something's going on, so I demo that fully, but yeah, that's all available today. It's included out of the box with all the templates from the pm create mud, but otherwise you can also use this on its own without any mud specific stuff. Like if you're using VM on its own, you can use this as well, and it will handle nonces. That's it.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen again. All right, you should see my screen again.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Amazing. Thank you very much, Frolic. Next, besides the client and context changes, we also cleaned up a bunch of deprecated packages from the repo. So all the packages you can see here have been cleaned up from the repo. They all contain deprecated V1 code. Most of them, or like some of them, have been replaced by new packages that do exactly the same as the previous packages, but like in the V2 way of doing things. And some of them have just been removed because they only contain V1 code that's no longer needed. And then some of the utils have also been moved to some other packages. And for details on that, you can head over to the new changelog on mod.dev/changelog for details, which brings me to my last point, which is the new changelog. We have a brand new global changelog that you can go to mod.dev/changelog to have a look at it. And every time we create a new pre-release, which we aim to do every week or so, sometimes more often than that, if there's a lot of changes, then it will create a new pre-release version here, and it will list all the major and minor and patch changes, along with all the instructions on how to upgrade to the new version and what exactly changed. So if you want to upgrade to the latest version, head over to mod.dev/changelog, and you will see like detailed instructions for how to do that. With that, we're already at the end of the updates. As usual, these are the links you can head over to. If you're interested in contributing to Mud, head over to contribute.mud.dev, and you will see a list of small issues that are easy to pick up and don't require a lot of context, so it's easy to get started. And if you're curious on what exactly we're doing, so the core devs, what are we working on, or if you're interested in contributing more deeply, then head over to roadmap.mud.dev with a list of all the things we're currently working on until the Mud stable release. And then on status.mud.dev, you can find an easy to process table of all the basically Mud features and their current stability status and what you can expect, what changes you can expect to them, and what's the time frame. And with that, we're at the end of the update session and ready for the Q&A. I'll hand it back to Kushaza, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so we already have one question from Rex earlier in the call. He said, what is your view on a universal standard for on-chain procedural map generation? Is it possible for this to become part of MUD?
That's an interesting question. So we do have the Purdon libraries, which is basically a very low level utils that allow you to create procedural maps. And then we have basically examples for how to use this in OPCraft, where we created one. I wonder what a universal standard for that would look like, because I feel like every project has pretty different like requirements for how their map would look like. So yeah, I wonder what exactly you have in mind. If you want, you can elaborate, or we can chat more about it later, async in the channels.
All right, great. And then Jaguk, John Grant, is asking, could you TLDR the new sync stack a bit, or point to docs that describe it? Maybe just an overview.
Do you want to take that one, Frolic?
Yeah, I don't think we have much in the way of docs yet, and a lot of this is abstracted away in the MUD libraries themselves. You basically just call out to sync to RECS, for example, instead of set up V1 network. So a lot of the internals are sort of abstracted away. You just provide it your VM client and a bit about your world, like the world address and the ABI and things like that. At a high level, the way the sync to stack works is essentially a bunch of stream transformations. So we start out with a stream that represents the current block number, which we get from VM, and then we transform that into a stream of log fetches. Basically, we call get logs for all the events that exist in the store protocol for the given world address. And then we take those logs and then pipe that into a thing that groups them and sorts them by block number, so that we can operate them atomically inside the database. Or ultimately inside the database, we can wrap everything that happens in a block in a transaction because they're kind of very similar in how they operate. And then that grouping of logs is then passed into a thing that knows how to operate on the events from the store protocol. So it parses the events and kind of creates nice tables and structured data out of the events that are emitted on chain. And then ultimately you can take those like now JSON objects or JavaScript objects and pipe them into something else. So we have an adapter for RECS, so it goes straight into the RECS internal store, and you can use it reactively with those libraries. And then also have an adapter for SQLite, so it gets piped straight into nice SQLite tables that you can query and do whatever operations you want. With a standard relational database, you get a table for every table that exists in your MUD config. And then very soon, what I'm working on this week and last week is a Postgres adapter. So similarly to SQLite, it pipes everything into Postgres, and so you can run that in the cloud and have a nice relational data store that represents all your on-chain data.
Awesome. Thank you, Frolic. Anyone have any follow-up questions or any other questions in general? Last call. Any questions? All right, guess not. Well, then I just want to leave you guys off with just a reminder of the announcement I made at the beginning, which is that we are hiring for 3 new positions. We have the senior, senior infrastructure engineer, senior Solidity engineer, and senior TypeScript engineer. The JDs aren't up quite yet, but just in a few hours, we're going to be posting them on our website and in the Discord. So you can look forward to seeing more information about it there. Yeah, and that's all for today. So thank you everyone for coming. We can see you again for the next core dev call next month, as well as the next demo call in 2 weeks.